Good evening. Many people spend their entire lives searching for happiness, trying to find or think or buy the next latest or greatest thing that's going to make them happy. People think, if I just had X, then I'd be happy. If I had the newest iPhone or the fastest car or the skinniest waist or the popular boyfriend, then I would be happy. But I'm sure, as you all know, that's not really how it works. While there may not be one specific key to happiness, there certainly are many things you can do and strategies that you can adopt in your own life to ensure that more of your time is spent happy and content. And my goal this evening is to spend a little bit of time speaking with you tonight about some of those exact strategies. So the first thing I'd like to speak with you about this evening is resilience. Now, resilience is a psychological term that explains some people's ability to overcome obstacles and hardships. You may have heard the expression, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. At least I do. It was something from my childhood. If you can remember that little ditty, you'll find that there really is some truth to that. In my role as a psychologist, I often work with people who have encountered similar experiences, similar life events, hardships, negative things that they've had to overcome in their life. And what I found is that those same people may experience the same type of negative experience, challenge, obstacle, and yet react in two very, very different ways. Some people focus on the negative part of the experience, and it festers, it grows, and it continues to affect their life for years future in negative ways. Whereas other people in a similar situation find a way to bounce. They're resilient. They're able to move on, move past it, overcome it, and it doesn't continue to fester in their life. There's been many research studies in the field of psychology looking at what it is that gives people that resilient factor, what makes people resilient. And one of the common themes that reoccurs throughout the literature is having one stable, constant person in your life, somebody that's there for you unconditionally, to listen to you and to be there for you, is a real factor in developing the kind of resilience I'm speaking about. So my advice for you is to find that person in your own life. Find the person, identify the person that is there for you unconditionally, and use them to help you learn how to bounce. Bounce, dance, Stacey, dance. So confidence is the next thing I want to speak to you about. When I was a little girl, my grandmother, with whom I was really, really close, would parade me in front of every neighbor and friend and family and whoever she could find to come into our house. And she'd say, dance, Stacey, dance. And I would dance. Now, I liked to dance, and I was in lessons at the time, but I've never been particularly good. But that didn't matter. The point was she thought I was good. And because she thought I was good and she told me I was, I started to believe her, and I danced. Knowing that you can be good at something, irregardless of merit, believing that someone else believes in you will give you confidence. And confidence is really about you believing yourself. It's perception. And since perception is really what happiness is an emotion. It's all about how you perceive things. If you feel you can do something, you will be able to do it. Using that confidence, developing a sense of mastery over something, is really another factor that makes people happy. If you think something is going to happen, it probably will, for good or for bad. So thinking about that in terms of happiness, it makes me think of the power of positive thinking. So the power of positive thinking is rooted in something, rooted in the psychological principles of cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT. Now, because we don't have countless years and university credits to talk about CBT, I'm not going to go into that right now, but the basic premise is that your thoughts control your feelings, which in turn control your behaviors. I'm sure I have a slide for that somewhere here. There you go. So a quick example might be you encounter a situation. You see a dog on the street. You could form one of two very different thoughts. You might think, that's a cute little dog, he's kind of cute. And the feelings you'd associate that with would be you're feeling happy, you feel calm, which would in turn cause you to behave in such a way that you might go over and pet the dog or just keep going and go your merry way. That same situation, if your thought was negative, you might think, that dog's going to bite me, which would cause you to have very different feelings. You'd feel anxious, scared, which would then prompt different reactions, different behavior. You might cry or run away. So thinking about that in the context of happiness makes me think of the power of positive thinking. The same situation, every situation, can be interpreted multiple ways. Choosing to focus on the positive thoughts will invoke more positive feelings of happiness. So making the active decision to look at the bright side is truly instrumental in fostering happiness and contentment. My next tip for you would be to avoid Dementors. Now, that is not a psychological term that you're going to find in any textbook. It's just something I made up. But I borrow that kind of analogy from J.K. Rowling because I think it gives you a good picture of what I'm talking about. I like to call them awfulizers or energy suckers. And I'm sure you all probably have an idea of the kind of people I'm talking about. You've probably met them. There are people who, for whatever reason, variety of reasons, choose to always focus on the negative. They always seem to have something to complain about. They pick out the negative thing of an experience, and they kind of fester on that. Likely because they like the negative attention it gives them. They like having something to complain about, and they like having people listen to those complaints. Negative attention is equally as reinforcing of behavior and predictive of future behavior as is positive attention. But if happiness is your goal, my advice would be to avoid Dementors. Get out of there. Be polite, stay kind, but find a reason to not be around. Power on. One trait of happy people is typically that they spend time around other happy people. Social media, using your devices, can be an incredibly powerful tool for helping you connect with other people that have shared common interests, hobbies, like the same kind of things you do. Being in a group of those happy people and people who enjoy being around are going to promote positive feelings. They're going to make you feel happy. Power off. Now, I know I just told you to turn on your devices and your cell phones and your tablets, but it's equally important to shut them off at times. Turn off your tablets, your iPads, your cell phones, and join the land of the living. Be with other human beings, interact with other people. Connecting and spending time with people who think similar to you, who have interests and hobbies that you enjoy, are going to make you feel good. It feels good to be around people that are happy and that like the same kinds of things you do. At the same time, it's equally important to spend time with people who have different ideas and thoughts and interests. People who may think of things through a little bit of a different lens. Being around people that think differently than you will encourage you to broaden the way you think about things. It challenges you to come up with new thoughts and ideas and change your perspective. It really it changes the lens through which you see the world. And since happiness is all about perspective, being able to change that lens and see things in a more positive light, being better at perspective taking in general is a really great strategy to have, a really great tip to have. Help somebody else. Doing something kind or helpful or generous or nice is a really important human quality. It's really difficult to be in a bad mood when you see somebody else appreciate something that you've done for them. Appreciating makes you, realize that you have things to share with others and people appreciate that. And it's really hard to be negative or in a bad mood when that is reflected back positively on you. Realize that happiness is just one of many different human emotions. Frustration, anger, boredom, being cranky, those are all equally important and legitimate feelings to have. Recognizing that it's not all going to be wonderful is a really important thing, a strategy to keep it kind of in your back pocket as well. Not every day is going to be happy. Not every day is going to be okay. Learning to accept the negative will give you a reflection or a better perspective when things do go well. It'll help you recognize when things are going well or going good for you. Remember, it gets better. And while that might sound a little bit cliche, I was willing to put this most embarrassing picture of myself out there publicly for all of you to prove a point that happiness is really about perception, perspective. Perspective is about perception. And really, what might seem like a disastrous, negative event in your life right now is likely going to be very different when you have a different perspective. Time gives you that different perspective. So, don't worry about it. It gets better. Realize that if you're not happy now, that's okay. Time will grant you a different perspective, and it will get better. A big part of my role as a psychologist working in schools is to conduct psychological assessments, profiling intellectual or neurological strengths and weaknesses. Cognitively, I run a series of tests, I do clinical interviews, I observe people, and it's my job to figure out what they're good at and what they're not so good at, neurologically speaking. The secret to happiness is figuring out how to do exactly that with your entire life. Doing assessments psychologically, I use that information, figuring out your strengths and weaknesses, to tell people, give people ideas for how they can use their strengths to overcome or work around their obstacles. If you could do that with your entire life, you really would be onto something with respect to happiness. Important to realize that we're not good at everything. Just like we have lots of strengths, we have things that don't come as easy to us. So you kind of ask yourself, does it make more sense to spend your life working uphill against things that may be challenging for you, or figuring out how to use your strengths to make a living or a life doing that? So living is something that gives you a paycheck. It's a means to an end. It's money. But if you like what you do for a living, it becomes part of your life. So I'd really encourage you to figure out what your strengths are. You'll enjoy doing those things. Use those to choose a vocation in life that becomes part of your life, your living and your life. And in doing so, you will spend more of your time, 40 plus hours a week, doing something you enjoy. It certainly will statistically improve your chances of being happy. At the same time, it's important to do something that you're not so good at. So yes, use your strengths, absolutely. But every once in a while, it's a good idea to challenge yourself, to learn a new skill. Your brain is a muscle, just like any other part of your body. It needs to be stretched and flexed and used in different ways, or it kind of gets stagnant. Practicing or learning a new skill, something that you're not automatically as comfortable with, gives you a chance to realize that you can achieve mastery over something that you didn't once feel confident in. That sense of mastery will boost your confidence, which will in turn, as I've already talked about, increase your odds of feeling happy and content. So while there may not be one specific key to happiness, there are certainly lots of things that you can adopt in your own life to increase your odds of feeling like you're in a good place. The ultimate key to happiness is to be happy. Choose it. Decide to be happy. It will result in an increase in your confidence, a different perspective. You need to choose to spend more of your time focusing on the positive and less time being stuck in that negative cycle. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over and over that's led to unhappiness in the past and expect a different result. Don't keep doing those same things that have made you unhappy up to this point and expect things to go differently. That's not going to happen. Instead, work from where you are, figure out what's positive and happy in your life right now, continue to try to improve and grow from there. And remember that while you might not ever find the one ultimate key to happiness, you're certainly going to have a better time trying. Thank you so much for listening this evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the night.